Hi, you're listening to Scribble Talk Teaching, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Baachu and I'll be sitting down with the industry leaders to dive deep into the topics that business winning professionals like you can use to help grow your skills and your career. Today's guest is Wouter von Tienhoven, and our topic is how to keep the pressure on your bid team within acceptable boundaries. Before I get into the topic, let me introduce our guest, Wouter. Wouter is not new to Scribble Talk. We have already shared the story in episode number 137, but for the new listeners, Wouter has over 25 years experiences in bid and tender management, is a owner of tender expert, and has supported leading companies including Sodexo, Talent Sourcer, CSU, Hago, Adjust, ISS, and Faciliticom. Previously, Wouter was with Yacht and Randstad company for over 10 years, taking varied roles. And before that, he was a teacher of economics and accounting, interestingly, for 12 years at Comenius College, and also ran his company CAT. So Wouter is the chairman of the APMP Netherlands chapter and treasurer for Foundation Ombudsman Public Contracting, which is OMA. Wouter is APMP practitioner certified and is fluent in Dutch, English, and French. So, Wouter, welcome to Scribble Talk Teaching, and just give us an overview of how to keep the pressure on your bid team and why this topic is important, Wouter.
There are a couple of things I like to elaborate about. Most bid teams are under high pressure because of a stiff workload and also because it's our nature of our work deadlines. In the BBC Europe, a colleague of us, Marianne from Strategic Proposals, had a presentation of mental health and the problems arising with bid professionals. She told us that around 50% of the people working in our profession choose to start another career within 5 years. And the pressure is immensely high for certain teams. And I was a bit shocked and also embarrassed that it was so harsh for so many people working in our profession. So I had some thoughts about it, and because I didn't recognize it, but that is probably because I'm used to work on another way than just try to score as much as RFPs and proposals as possible. I'm educated and I'm trained with Randstad, and with Randstad there was always some kind of way from just empower yourself, try it and don't ask for permission, but later you can always can be excused for your choices. And that's a quite healthy thing to develop your own power as an employee. I'm very happy with my learnings from Randstad, because when you had trouble about your workload, you had 7 things to do and you had only time for 4. You walk to your manager and you asked him, could you please help me because I'm stuck? And then the manager will always say, what do you think yourself? What have you done at this moment? With what choices you want me to help you choose? And so he didn't choose for you, but he helped you make up your own mind. And that's quite good, because you were that way you were responsible for your own choices. You made your own choices, and the pressure of the work was bearable. So I think that's very much important to have a balance in workload for all the members in your team. And I think about the bid managers, the solutions, the bid writers, the graphic designer. But how can you keep the pressure on your bid team within the boundaries that we all like? I think it's necessary to strive to keep your team healthy, so as both physically as mentally. And on the other hand, you don't want to quit their job. You don't want them to quit their job, because they are valuable employees for your company. And I think it all starts with a well-documented process, and a professional way of working and a mature way of working. And that's something like keeping your promises, stick to the plan, help each other, keep the common goal sharp, and winning a bid. I think that if you are in such an environment, then you can make choices with the company. And one of the things I have learned in the past is you do need a good, strict capture process. A capture process, as we know that APMP has the capture certification in place since about a year. It's so much important for your company to have a good capture process, because the capture process, when it's done, it gives the input for the qualification process. And without capture process, you can't qualify a bid. So that's the first condition you have to have in a company. And I will explain later why the capture process and the qualification is of such a great importance. The qualification process. There are two ways you can start your qualification process. The first is, in my opinion, is something like when is a bid interesting and good for your company? So you have some questions as does we fit the client? Is it an important client for us? Can we deliver? Are we in a good relationship with the customer? And all those kind of questions of the gross margin in the past, was it good? All kind of questions you can ask and value your relationship and also the chance to win a bid. I work with Randstad, and we work with some kind of percentages for each question, and it ends in a traffic light situation: green light, yellow, or red. And if you have enough green lights, you are allowed to make your bid. But you can also give it a percentage between 0 and 100 each question, and then count them and number them and give them a number from 0 to 100. All bids above score 75 are a go. Below 60, you are to discuss it with the company direction. That's one of the ways to make some qualification, but it should be robust. And I prefer to have the information for the qualification out of the data out of the CRM of the ERP. So what was the gross margin in the past 3 years? How many contacts we have on C-level? All those kind of things make it objectives, clear, and no discussion is necessary to service the RFP, yes or no, to do a bid or not a bid. Another thing for qualification, I'm not quite sure if you know that, Baachu, that's the Scotsman's qualification tool. And Scotsman is an abbreviation of a certain questions, and each question you can score with a number. So by example, Scotsman, the S is solution. Is there a solution we can supply? The C is competition. Are you aware who are your competitors, and are you better than your competitors, or can you derive because of your competitors? Originality, can you be unique, original for the sale? The T is for time scale. Have we got enough time to be possible to make a good offer? The size, is it interesting for us? The value is good. The company is large enough to handle it. Is it the normal size we normally work with? Money, Also very important, is there a budget allocated, and how much, and is the budget approved? And then the A, authority. Are we speaking with the right person, and has the person the authority to choose for your company? And needs is, of course, the N is needs, because aware of all their needs. Can you match them up? Have you any understanding of your client? All these questions you can score, and after scoring, you can decide to bid or not to bid. And the general idea of the qualification is that you are making good decisions based on facts and data. So the chance to win goes up and the workload goes down, because you choose more with your head, with your ratio. Yes, we are going to start this bid, yes or no. Because some companies have the idea that any RFP that's coming in should be bid on. I think that in America they have a survey, and I thought, I'm not quite sure, but I thought that if you have no relationship with the client, you've only got a 5% chance to win. So you have to make 20 bids for one winning bid. That's a very expensive way of working. So I think that it's quite necessary to have a robust qualification system and stick to the qualification system, because the workload will be handleable. It will be nice, will be good. People will be able to feel now experience the success of winning business, because you can't win all the business, all the RFQs if you start to bid on any bid. So the amount of bids, the number of bids goes down, and the numbers of wins goes up. So that's the necessity for the qualification system, and that will keep the workload to a normal level, and will make your crew, your employees happy, because they win and they don't have to work 12 hours or 20 hours a day. So that's about the qualification system. Dus in the long-term qualification system is one of the best things you can do. And there is another quite interesting thing about the qualification system. If you score about, let's say, 6 months or 25 or 30 RFPs, and you analyze that the bids that are high in the percentages, so like 75 or 80%, probably the win rate will also be high. And the bids that will qualify with 40% or 50%, you will experience that you will have a low win rate on those. So by example, if you score 40% of the questions or the score of the numbers, that you will see that you will have very much difficulties to win those bids. So the qualification system can also predict in the long term your chance of winning. And of course you have to calibrate, of course you have to work with it for a couple of months or years for its optimum. But that's also very nice, because every time that you qualify a bid and it scores high, the chance to win will also be high. And every time when a bid has a low score, you will experience that it's very difficult to win, and the chance is very, very probably that you will lose. So that's also a way to keep the workload for your team at a level that is acceptable. And it's also in the benefits for the company, of course. So much about the qualification systemic and also the predictions about it. Another thing you can try to keep the workload within boundaries is to work with a fictive cost of answering on an RFQ, on writing a bid or no bid. If you got a fictive cost, you can talk with the direction, you can talk with management and ask them, are we prepared for a bid that qualifies as, well, 50%, to spend 20,000 or 25,000 dollars, euros to bid on this bid? Is that a good idea to spend such a lot of money with a bid that's probably not able to win? And also our margin, net margin, will about be 3 to 7%. Most management will decide to go along with you if you got the numbers right. You have to prove that the qualification system has some way of predicting the chance of winning or losing. You have to have a business case for how much money have to be spent for making a good bid that should be winning, or could be winning. So that's the second one you can use to talk with the management and explain to the management that it's not in interest of the company to have bids on any bid that's coming along or is dropping on the mailbox. So that's also an instrument to keep the workload to an acceptable level. Just about what I was talking about, the way to keep you keep your staff healthy. There's also one thing, and I have to stress this, that you need to tailor-made the qualification and the capture process. It should be tailor-made to your company's need and the possibilities of your team. So that's something I have to mention and to stress, because it's not one size fits all, and in the qualification system and also in the capture process.
Thank you, Wouter. I think what a comprehensive overview. I think it's very, very, very interesting the way you connected the traditional qualification process, capture process into the employee's well-being, because normally they both are actually looked in an isolated manner. The people tend to talk about the bid no bid process, the importance of it separately, and people tend to talk about how the capture process influence the bid no bid and bid validation, bid qualification, etc. But end of the day, yes, it all connected to the bid, but under the bid there is an individual who is the kind of heart and soul behind it, and please don't forget him or her, because it's his well-being is important. And it's a very nice way of connecting that, Wouter. But let's start from the very beginning, and then we'll go one step.
Yeah.
I think in the topic that you mentioned, how to keep the pressure on your bid team within acceptable boundary, which is a very interesting title in itself. So, like culturally, when we, what we look into that is the acceptable boundary for different geographies tend to be different. From your experience, Wouter, how long does an average proposal manager work?
Well, it's not. Well, in the Netherlands, we have a certain work week for 40 hours a week. But I have to admit that if a bid is, if you are working on a bid, it's sometimes you have to work 50 or 60 hours a week, because bids have strong deadlines and you have to respect them. So there's not a choice of it's Friday, 6 o'clock, I'm going home. No, the bid must finish, so you have to work some more time. But on the other hand, at the moment that there's no bids, you can slow down, you can work easy, you can choose to have some surveys or other things that are necessary. But normally the norm in the Netherlands is 40 hours a week, Monday to Friday. But I think that most proposal managers are most of the time working well around 48 hours or something like that. It's not always easy to say from, well, it's the end of my shift, I'm going home, because you know other colleagues will have to suffer the pain and will have to work harder. So that's also something that that's something for the management of the bid team, to have your team complete working. And I think it's not done that some of the team are going home and some of them are working longer. So the team should try to work and help each other to finish the bid by cooperating together. When I was a manager of a team with for Silicon, when there was a bid, I always stayed as manager, as the last one leaving the ship in the evening, because I think that it's necessary to be example for your colleagues, for your team, that you won't go home before they go home. So that's something I think that a good manager will always have an eye for his people and will not go home and let them do the working. And now since COVID, it's quite a different story because of the hybrid working at home and at the office. So that's a little bit of a different story at the moment.
That's very interesting, Wouter. I think when you mentioned, of course, we all have a statutory hourly thing of 40 hours, but we all work beyond, regardless of where you are from, whether you are from the US or the UK or the Europe, Netherlands, or you're from India, Middle East. It all sounds the same because that's how the proposal career has been structured. So that's interesting. But you as a proposal manager, might have worked long, late, but you also shared some of the interesting things that you have done while you were there with part of Randstad, where firming up the capture process, firming up the bid no bid means you prioritize the bids that you want to work with, and then you just put the team around it. So that's work-life balance. Is there any other stuff other than bid no bid and the capture process that comes into your mind of how else we can strike this balance of keeping the pressure at the same time within the acceptable boundaries, Wouter?
I think that's one of the things you have to do is to educate the rest of the company and explain them why it's necessary to respect deadlines. When you've got deadlines, it's cascading. So if one deadline is missed, further in the process, other people have to work harder or faster or longer to get the deadline for the next term or for the next piece of work to respect that deadline. So you have to educate and explain to the company and to all your colleagues that deadlines should be respected. A deadline is a deadline because it's a deadline. And if you don't respect deadlines, it means that you force other people to work late or longer, and it's rather unprofessional to do that. And it's also it's not good for your colleagues. So it's also not good for the collaboration within the company to have this kind of attitude that, oh, well, never mind, deadline, tomorrow is early enough. So that's also important, that there is a policy in the company, and certainly with the help of the management, that deadlines should always be respected, because it's a deadline, because it's a deadline, and there are no exemptions. So that's also one of the things that is very important, that the management, the CEO, will always stand by you when you have a difference or a quarrel with someone who doesn't respect the deadlines. So that's very important, to have that kind of culture, a way of working, that we work together, but we have to obey certain rules. So that's also one of the things that keeps the workload in balance, if the deadlines and the planning is met.
Wow, that's brilliant, Rod. I think, do you have any extreme examples of people going beyond the boundaries, and you really saw that yourself, of people kind of struggling mentally, physically?
Yes. I've had some experience with that kind of things. I do remember that at one of the companies I worked, there was a bid, and the deadline was internal was 12 o'clock in the day, in the morning, and they had a lot of things to do about the pricing. I'm not quite sure what was happening, but I was waiting for the final documents, and finally I got the final documents 12 hours later, 5 minutes for midnight, and that was also the critical deadline, midnight. That was not nice because I was waiting for 12 hours, but also the pressure to submit the documents electronically was high. So I was not happy with it. And I was rather stressed out that evening when I went home at 12 o'clock 30. And also in the next morning, it appears that someone had made a terrible mistake. There was a spreadsheet with 7 tabs, and someone had copied one of the tabs, filled it in, and submitted it, and the other 6 tabs were disappeared. So the next morning, I was archiving everything, and I noticed that the spreadsheet was not completely delivered to the client. So 6 tabs were not delivered. We had them filled in, we had them, but somebody had stupidly copied 1 tab, renamed the document, and because of the timing, I was not able to do a thorough check at 5 o'clock, 5 minutes spare to submit the proposal. So that's something that is very embarrassing, very annoying. I remember that the manager, the owner of the bid, was very annoyed also to me, but on the other hand, I couldn't check in 5 minutes all the documents. I had to submit them. So it was very annoying, and I was very well. I didn't like it. I was a bit sore about it. That was quite rude and unnecessary, and we won the bid, if I'm not mistaken, if I do remember, but it was a high price we paid for it.
100%. I remember enough stories of even like few years ago, I was working on a very intense proposal. It was like starts like 8 in the morning, all the way in the night. And to make it worse, that the whole building, a large, very popular building, it didn't have enough ventilation. So I ended up pretty much because I have asthma, I ended up having breathing attacks and nearly collapsed.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for that. And sometimes it's just like overreacting to as if this is the main thing. And but it's there. I think what you kind of nailed it here is there. You need to connect. You need to connect the traditional best practices on capture, on bid no bid, to people's help. When Howard Nutt used to run the BD Institute, part of it there was this framework where you could easily connect. There is the people bucket, and there is this company bucket, and there is this customer bucket. So you could clearly connect. Okay, making a decision here will have an impact there, but today it's all done in an isolated way. And what your talk has made, most probably will made all the listeners aware is, don't just talk about win rates and the capture process or win rates and bid no bid decisions. Also think about how it connects to the employees as well. That's well said.
Yeah, and there's another thing I think when I'm thinking about deadlines, when you are challenging deadlines, you get last minute changes in the proposal or in the pricing, and the probability that there's something goes wrong, a wrong version or an error or something you mistyped, is increasingly becoming larger and greater if you have a lot of pressure in the last couple of days or the last couple hours. So I'm always trying to manage my team and my bid to have the workload pushed in front to the front of the proposal, so that the last week is a very conditioned environment where there's not a lot of pressure. There is serenity, there is rest, there is time to rethink, to check, to double check. So that's also a way of working that is also important, that the work should be done in the first weeks or the first days of the time scale, and not at the end. But somehow, most of the time, at the end of the proposal will become the pressure, and that's unhealthy. And also, it's a great risk for the company to have wrong documents, wrong versions, or whatever. So keep the pressure away from the last 4 days or the last week, because it's a recipe for disaster.
Well said, Dr. Well said. I think it's very interesting because, when culturally Netherlands, when you look at it from the outside, it's like much more relaxed, well-being, family, they give much more importance. But even you tell me that bids, regardless of whatever the culture, it's still done long late. Imagine the other cultures where having 70 hours, 80 hours, like double the time, it's not. It's a total disaster. 100%. Wouter, again, any final thoughts, Wouter? I think you talked about, why is it important to use a very strict capture process? Also document whatever this process, working with your SMEs or working with collateral libraries or anything, document, stick to the plan, help each other, the qualification system and bits and pieces. Any final thoughts, Wouter, before we close this? Why people need to do this? Keep a healthy pressure, but at the same time within boundaries. Your final?
Yeah, my final thoughts about it, and it's almost the same as the last time we spoke to each other. I think we work with humans. We are in the business of humans. Please stay connected, talk with each other, look after each other, because in the proposal world, we need each other. We should be listening to each other, understand each other. That will make us successful in the long term. So stick together and take care of each other.
Wow, what a beautiful message there, totally. And what advice would you give people who are just this one-person bands? There's nobody to support them. They need to create their own capture process. It help themselves out, close the proposal, and even in certain cases, mobilize the contract, etc. Any thoughts for those people?
Yeah, become a member of APMP and try to connect with other bid and proposal managers, to talk with them and share lessons learned and try to understand how others are successful or are not successful. That's one of the great gifts of APMP, and to my opinion, is the face-to-face meetings where sometimes I'm talking to somebody and I think, okay, I'm already doing that, so I'm on track. I'm doing the good things, the right things at the right moment. And other times there is someone talking to me and telling me something how they work, and I think, oh, I like to adapt it in my system. I like to adapt it in with my company. I have to make notes, and tomorrow I will try to embed it. So I think that if you're alone with you're a one-man army, please strike alliances, try to connect with other people, and APMP is a miracle for this.
Well said. I think what a message. 100%. Nobody is lonely unless you decide to be lonely. I mean, Please ask for help. Whether you reach out in LinkedIn, whether you reach out to people whom you know, or by joining a local chapter, there is always people there for help. Thank you, Wouter. What an absolute brilliant topic. How to keep up the pressure on your bid team within acceptable boundaries. And that gives a nice reality check. You can't go to an utopian world of, let's strike a balance, let's create a work-life balance. End of the day, you as a proposal professional are there to bid and win contracts, and you need to accept, in some cases, deadlines means that you need to work long late, and that's the thing. You have to keep the pressure at the same time within boundaries. Amazing, Wouter. Thank you so much for joining.
Any bid professional is a brother, a mother, a sister, or whatever, but has a private life with his family, and that's also the most important thing.
Wow. What a powerful message. We just had Mother's Day just recently, and
yeah,
I mean, like, it's I think how many times have we recognized now they are there in their mind. I need to pick my kids, drop my kids, their homework. They still have to go and do that, supported by the other partner. If they can, they can't do. But then comes the cooking, cleaning, washing, ironing. It's brilliant, I think, and you nailed it there, Wouter. Thank you so much, Wouter, for your time. As always, it's been an absolute privilege to have you at Scribble.
I very much appreciated that I was able to share my thoughts and my experience for the couple of years ago, and I hope that someone else I've helped someone else somewhere to become a better bit of professional.
Totally. I think acknowledging there is a problem itself is important, Wouter, and you acknowledged it and say, hey guys, you know what? Connect the dots. One end talk about bid process, one end talk about capture process, bid no bid, but connect the dots, connect to the person behind. I think this conversation, I'm sure, will inspire proposal professionals and proposal leaders to connect the dots, to just think, hey, what can I do to better?
Yes.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, and look after yourself, and definitely you'll be back on a new topic. But until then, wish you all the good health and happiness. Stay healthy, stay happy, and I'll speak to you very soon. Thank you, Wouter.
Same to you, Bhaskar, and thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you.
Always a pleasure, always a pleasure.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit bachuscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundram,
signing off.